bless you. Let's get started. Wait, turn and bless somebody else. We'll get going.
Thank you, Lord, for tonight, Lord. Thank you for giving us strength to finish off strong. Thank you for giving us new eyes to see, Lord, and new ways to capture and be creative, Father. Can we toot? It's heavy there, it's really heavy.
Chip camera, mate.
Like, the reason why we're here is to see the impact that, like, we're helping our team, like Bill and Eric.
Channel we get on 4.
I was exposure on 5.
Their goal is to impact people's lives and change lives.
Well, but also the stage lights are virtually off right now, aren't they?
Our artists are amazing. Like, these band members.
160.
So when I'm mixing at a conference, it is...
These guys, like, our drummer.
Absolutely not for me.
Our philosophy of capturing worship.
You guys are worship superstars.
Hey, people come for years. You actually feel
Really
like, hey, I just need to worship right now. Take a minute and worship.
Here at Churchfront, we love implementing new technology into our worship ministry, and we love helping others do the same. Our mission is to help you lead gospel-centered and tech-savvy worship. In this episode of Worship Tech Tour, we got the opportunity to visit Bethel Church to tour their entire tech setup. So Jake Gosselin, my fearless leader, Luke Ramlet, our 12-year-old drummer, and myself, Ashton Turner, the most pleasant-sounding voiceover voice guy, flew out to Redding, California, where Bethel Church is located. We spent most of our time at In-N-Out.
What number is this, bro?
In Bethel's Open Heavens Conference. The conference is one of their larger annual events, hosting 2,500 people in Redding. There's a pretty good chance you've already heard of Bethel. Their reach is massive. Weekly attendance in Redding is over 10,000. Every day, hundreds and sometimes thousands of visitors from around the globe make the pilgrimage to experience the movement firsthand. They've pioneered bringing church online with the Bethel TV platform, which has thousands of weekly active viewers. Finally, Bethel produces worship music that resonates with churches around the world. There's a good chance your church is singing multiple songs written by the Bethel music team. Bethel also hosts over 60 conferences a year. Let's face it, there is no shortage of controversy around the Bethel church movement.
Whether you should play Reckless Love by Corey Asbury.
That's often the case when a group of people make bold moves and take big risks for the kingdom.
Went back to the doctors, and the doctor said, you no longer have Asperger's.
There's always going to be haters. Jesus had a lot of haters. Bethel Church is both ordinary and extraordinary. They're an ordinary local church, just like yours and mine, but their impact is extraordinary. The number of lives that they've touched is in the millions. Technology has played a massive role in helping them achieve this impact. For centuries, the church has been on the forefront of leveraging tech for the gospel. The Apostle Paul used Roman roads, medieval architects leveraged masonry and stained glass. Today, churches like Bethel use the latest tools available to create immersive and compelling worship gatherings that change lives, whether you're in the room or on the opposite side of the globe. In this video, we are going to unpack the worship tech that they use at Bethel. More importantly, you'll get a glimpse at their heart and passion for Jesus. Our hope is that you'll leave this video inspired by what's possible when your church is willing to innovate for the kingdom. You'll also discover that there doesn't need to be a dichotomy between the pastoral and technical aspects of worship. When executed with discernment, these two facets strengthen one another and lead to engaging worship. The setup you are going to see in this video is Bethel's portable rig. The main campus isn't large enough to host conferences like Open Heavens, so they frequently rent out the Civic Auditorium in Redding, building which holds around 2,500 people. The gear and systems they use with this portable setup is nearly identical to their permanent rig at the church. So don't fret, even though we spend most of our time at the conference, you can assume everything is the same unless I say otherwise. Most of the gear that we'll cover in this video is a bit out of reach for smaller to mid-sized churches, but we hope it inspires you and satisfies your curiosity knowing exactly how a team like Bethel Production accomplishes their work. For a list of our recommended worship ministry gear for smaller to mid-sized churches, check out our worship ministry toolkit, which is linked down below. Beyond gear and software, you will gain a ton of insight on best practices and strategy for worship tech that can be applied with any church size or budget. So, without further ado, let's dive into every facet of Bethel Church's entire tech setup with audio, lighting, video, display, cameras, and broadcast. So let's dive into front of house audio. We talked to Chris Greeley, Bethel's mixing engineer for this conference. He has mixed many of Bethel Music's albums and countless other studio and live albums, so if anyone is qualified to talk about mixing, it's him. Let's hear from Chris about their front of house mixer and PA setup and his tips and advice when it comes to mixing.
Hi, I'm Chris Greeley. I'm running front of house for Open Heavens at this time right now. Here at Open Heavens, I'm on an SD series console. I'm just on the baby SD9 right now, and it gets enough done to make things work. The bigger one's a little better, but this is working just fine. And using the Meyer Lion, and I have 6 700 HPs, which are discontinued at the moment, but I always liked them. They're nice. You can tune them really well. And they're in cardioid. And then we are running the Meyer Galaxy, which is awesome. And so when I tune the PA with this stuff, I have the ability to pick different filters, which makes it so that I can have a different phase trace in order to match the speakers up really, really nicely. So I'm really, really huge fan of the Galaxy. There's really nothing, I don't think there's anything better. I think the Galaxy is absolutely the best system processor in the world. So I have SoundGrid running right here. And in SoundGrid, I have basically everything running through SoundGrid in one way or another. All of my main instruments. I don't really use it for EQ that much. I mostly use it for dynamics, because the dynamics on just about any console out there aren't super great. They work, but you know, on this console in particular, they distort a little bit when you really get them moving. So I just use SoundGrid for all of that stuff. One of the cool things that maybe not a lot of people know is the SD series consoles are the only ones that can fully remote control SoundGrid as well. So I have a knob and a button. Any parameter I click on there, I can use my knob and my button. And if I select any channel, it pulls the channel up on the screen. And not all the consoles do that, so that's pretty nice. So when I'm mixing at a conference, it is absolutely not for me. I am mixing for other people, and so whoever it is that I'm mixing for right now, my boss would be Bill Johnson. And Bill will tell me if he wants something changed. Usually he doesn't, but he will let me know if he wants something changed. And I have no agenda. If he says I want less low end and I think it's fine, it's totally fine. He wants less low end and I'm going to turn it down. If he wants the volume quieter, I'll turn it down. If he wants it louder, which I pray he doesn't, because it's killing me to be mixing for so many hours at this volume. You know, I'll turn it up. It's really for other people, and I'm trying to use my skills to facilitate everything that's going on in that stage in this room, and to the very best of my ability, and to whatever my client wants as well, or whatever our leadership wants. And I think that's really important, and a lot of engineers just totally miss that. They think, oh, this is what I like, and this is what, it doesn't matter what you like. It's the same thing with worship. When you're doing worship, you're like, oh, I don't like worship, but why is it about you? Worship's about God. And I honestly, I am trying with everything I have in me to turn mixing into another expression of worship. I really, I hear what the crowd's doing. I want the crowd to be a part of the worship, even in the sound. So I try not to overpower the crowd with the PA too much. I try to have it, I can hear the people, but it's not so quiet they don't want to sing. It's not so loud that they can't hear each other. But just like try to find that volume where it's all one big thing together, rather than like a bunch of, we have the band and then the crowd. I want it to be one experience. And honestly, I have a lot of power to be able to play into that from this platform.
At the Open Heavens Conference, the worship team was rocking 10 people. You've got 3 vocalists, 3 electric guitars, a bassist, a violinist, and then your keyboardist and drummer, who both run Ableton Live for a Click and Tracks rig. The vocalists rock Shure wireless microphones with the V7 MC1 capsules, which have stellar sound. Then the guitars are all being sent to Fender ProSonic amps using the TC Electronic Teleport GLT system, which converts the unbalanced guitar signals to a balanced signal, which is then sent backstage to the amps. The keyboardist is rocking the Nord Stage 3, which is plugged into an audio interface, which sends the signal to a rack-mountable DI box and off to the stage subsnake. For drums, they're using Truth custom shells, Zildjian cymbals, and DW hardware. They mic the drums with Audix drum microphones, a Shure SM57 on the snare, and AKG condensers for overhead. Miking the crowd is key for having a live and natural sound for broadcast and in-ear mixes. In this venue, they use the Sennheiser shotgun microphones. Then the keyboard rig is stationed next to the Ableton rig, which is where the keyboard gets all of its sounds from, but this may seem a bit superfluous considering that the drummer also has an Ableton setup next to the drums. Drake Kelch, the production manager for Bethel Church, explains why they have this set up the way that they do.
Yeah, so we have the ability in the patch list for drums to run Tracks and Click, or keys to run Tracks and Click, or both. The keys player always uses Ableton and Reason for their sounds and everything like that. They can put Tracks and Clicks in there if they want to, or the drummer can. So in this case, right now it's on the keys player, he's doing it all. The first night we had a different drummer and he was doing Tracks and Click. So it really depends on the band and who's playing, but we have the ability to even do both. So sometimes we'll have the opener come from drums and then the keys player will take the rest of the set. And then at home we have a network so the Ableton sessions can link. And then that way the clicks are the same and all that kind of stuff.
Running 2 Ableton sets at once allows for an incredible amount of freedom, as both the drummer and the keys player also have talkback mics that let them communicate to the band. This system allows them to free flow and be spontaneous in worship while still utilizing Click and Tracks. Any Click and Tracks rig isn't possible without in-ear monitors, so we sat down with their monitor engineer to try and get a handle on everything going on with this system.
My name is David Payton, and I'm a monitor engineer for this conference. I'm just a mix engineer for the church, so I'll do front of house and I'll do monitors sometimes. I'm mixing all the ears for the bands and handling as much stage setup as we need, getting all the artists set and comfortable, getting their ears set, making sure that things are mic'd properly, making sure everyone's plugged in, that sort of stuff.
While making sure things are plugged in is hard enough on its own, David's responsibilities behind the mixer get a little bit more challenging. David mixes the in-ear mix for every single member of the worship team individually. The wireless system that the band members use is the Shure PSM 1000s. For mixing monitors, they have a Digico SD8, which is responsible for some light processing and gain structure, but the beauty of this system is that everything is then getting sent into Wave's sound grid for all of the effects processing. Waves has extremely powerful plugins and compression, so it's interesting to see Waves actually beat out Digico in that aspect for Bethel. But the question I'm sure you're thinking too is, how does it even work to have someone else mix your in-ears? How can they know what sound that you need?
Our artists and our worship leaders are amazing musicians. Like they're amazingly talented people. And sometimes they'll have a lot of feedback, like, hey, I need a lot changed. But I've been on the team for like 4 years now, and I've gotten to know the leaders and know their preferences and stuff like that. So I definitely have like an advantage going into the set, knowing, hey, this artist likes a little bit more crowds, this artist doesn't like more crowds, like those types of things. So I have that advantage going in, but if it's a worship leader that I've never mixed for before, there can be, a longer conversation or just, more mix changes for them if I haven't ever mixed for them before. I think that one of the biggest strengths to our monitor mixes here is what we do in waves, being able to provide good compression, transparent compression to the whole band, which means we're compressing drums, we're compressing the bass, we're compressing guitars, keys. If that's wrong, there's not really any amount of EQ you can do to make things right. There's not really any way to balance a mix without appropriate compression. So I would say figure out what compressors you have. Not everyone's going to be able to use a Digico like I get to use, but figure out the tools that you have, learn the basics of what compression is needed on what instrument, on what source, and how those blend together. I'd say if you get that right, EQ becomes really easy, and then balancing a mix becomes extremely easy. And then the feel of what you're actually doing is going to carry it the rest of the way, just making sure that the mix feels good. So I'd say learn your tools as best as you can. Remember that compression is going to be a lifesaver early on or later on. Get that right. Get that right first.
So far, we covered their audio system at front of house and in-ear monitors, but an often overlooked but crucial aspect of any audio system is routing. How do they get audio sources from the stage to the various destinations it needs to be mixed and heard by the audience? There are two major factors when designing your audio routing setup. First, how many different mix destinations do you have? In this case, they have 3 destinations: the front of house mix for event attendees, the monitor mix for musicians, and the broadcast mix for Bethel TV. The second major factor is independent gain for mix engineers. In this case, they wanted to have independent gain control for Chris at front of house, while the monitor and broadcast engineers share the same gain structure. They created this setup by routing all channels to an analog stage box that duplicates the signal and sends them into 2 digital stage boxes. One stage box sends the signal to the front of house mix over the MADI digital audio networking protocol. The other stage box sends the signal to the monitor and broadcast mixers. The signal starts at the source and then gets sent to the stage snake on the stage, where it goes to the analog split, which then sends the signal to the first stage box and then through the MADI network to the front of house mixer. Then goes from the analog split to the second stage box, where through the MADI network it gets sent to the back of house mixer and the broadcast studio. It's really all pretty simple stuff. While this routing system may sound a tad complex, it gives David the flexibility he needs to create pristine mixes for the band.
So anyway, when we start a sound check, it usually starts with, hey, just getting everybody plugged in, and then I'll be on the console and I'll just set gains, because from drummer to drummer, the gains could be different. From guitar player to guitar player, the amps are going to be different levels, keys, everything is different. Singers even sing, a lot louder. So setting gains first, and then what we do is once all the gains are set and everyone's plugged in, we'll start with the drums. And the drummer will just play like a chorus or a bridge of one of the songs in the set, and he'll just play it kind of on repeat. And everyone will kind of just go thumbs up, thumbs down, and I'll adjust their mixes for each of them on the fly right there. And then we'll add the bass in, and then we'll add the first electric guitar, second electric guitar. So we're kind of building a band mix in the same way that you would at front of house. You'd solo something out, or you'd just kind of add layers. Well, we do that at the monitor booth as well, but we do it times 11 mixes, so it's a lot of mixes. So I'm having to move really fast. That's usually when I sweat the most, is during when we start sound check. That is the most efficient way to get everybody close to the mix that they want as quickly as possible. It's then after that that we'll do fine touches, fine tuning during the actual practice.
So that covers Bethel's audio setup. It's crazy the level of excellence that comes from every single member of the team to make the whole system work. Each band member is incredibly good at what they do and can communicate with David during sound check, but many times David actually knows what needs to be fixed and does it on his own. Then it's up to Chris to put together a mix for the front of house, independent from what David is doing, but all coming together as one. For lighting fixtures, Bethel has every angle covered. For wash LEDs, Bethel uses the GLP X4 washes, which are placed in groups of 2 around the stage for a powerful color wash. For their profile lighting, they use the Verilight VL4000s. Then for their key light, they use Verilight VL3500s, which have 4-way shutters that can really help them hone in and manipulate that light. They cover the basics well here with a well-designed 3-point lighting system. For crowd light and blinders, they use Rode color strobes, which are highly versatile and bright. Then they also employ haze using the MVG Atmosphere Hazer. Since Bethel has an LED setup that they set up and tear down, the ones you see here are used at their main campus as well, and it gives them a lot of opportunity for extra light and content display. The LED panels you see them using here are the Unilumin UPad 3s, which have a 4.8mm pixel depth. They also have a large LED pad at the back of the stage, but all of the other pads climb up the wall and also act as lids for the stage. So what was the idea behind this powerful lighting rig?
We've been doing actually a lot of different lids. Heaven Come has a giant lid. It's actually one of the largest LED lids ever done in production. We hung like, I Heaven Come was like 54,000 pounds. It's like the set, that's how much it weighed. The idea with this set was, one, to create like these strips to do like a lot of like color with them. So kind of using the LED more as like a light fixture instead of as content, because you can't put like a lot of content on these. They don't hold a lot. It's very small, but you can use them more as a light. And I tell people that a lot with LEDs, like, don't always use it for content. Like, it's a giant light source. So you can do stuff like Liam's been doing chases with these, or he can strobe it, or big, like on big moments, you can use it as like a blinder and it fades out, that type of thing. The other idea was too, is to create space for audio. At Bethel, audio is kind of like the key thing. It's always been that way. And so having space for, like, there's no LED behind the drums. And there's not a giant lid reflecting the drums out into the vocal mics, or the LED behind reflecting cymbal bleed. Like, it's basically creating space for audio to go out. If we can, a lot of times we'll use like blow-through LED. So again, sound can travel through it. There's 2 to 3 people that create all the content that's for like the messages, speaker walk-ons, bumpers, like all that kind of stuff. For worship content, it's on our team. So our team is actually creating and generating all of the content for worship. So like Liam and Roe, or Paul, for who are actually both back there, are creating it, and a lot of times on the fly. Like Liam will be pulling stuff in and tweaking it in Resolume and making it different while worship's happening.
In order to control lighting, Bethel uses the Grand MA3 lighting controller. Their entire lighting setup runs on 8 DMX universes, which are powered using these big racks behind the stage. The lighting console runs an Ethernet out into nodes on the stage, which convert to DMX and get run to each lighting fixture. Andrew, Drake's brother, is the lighting designer. He runs everything on the fly using color and intensity presets he programs into the board. He uses the faders to control movers and other effects so that he can easily make changes and adapt throughout worship.
So how I run lighting, it's somewhat basic. I try not to be super flashy, of course, because it is worship and I don't want to be distracting. So nice slow movements, slow symmetrical like chases is always nice. I really kind of focus in on like color, especially matching LED. really get that nailed down as a priority, and then kind of add like the movement and the effects part into it. And it just depends on the song. If it's a slow song, then there won't be like a whole lot of movement. It'll just be kind of color and intensity changes. But as it gets faster or builds, I'm gonna add that in. Yeah, I tend to have a lot of wash, so really I love wide fixtures. I don't like a lot of spotty fixtures because I don't like parts of the stage being highlighted more, especially for camera, because then it just looks hot spotty. So I like to create a big wash, that way every shot on camera looks good and looks consistent. And colors too, I like colors to match throughout the stage for camera's sake. So just kind of, I always tend to watch the multi-view a lot and just make sure that nothing is standing out, nothing looks weird on camera, because that's kind of our goal, is make it look great for broadcast and make it sound good too. So yeah, I'm just constantly watching multi-view, making sure everything looks good, and if that shot like doesn't look good to me, I'll try to fix it and do something so that shot looks better next time they take it. So.
Clearly, lighting is closely related to everything else in this tech system, but it seems, among all the other things, that it is extremely important that lighting complements video and images displayed on the large LED panels. For software, the tech booth runs ProPresenter and Resolume, running on a MacBook and PC respectively. ProPresenter displays song lyrics and other visual aids for speakers. Resolume is used to display content on the LED panels. Both of these computers also have a custom input-output rig, so think of them as large custom dongles. The Resolume machine takes an SDI out of the ProPresenter machine and then overlays lyrics on whatever content is being displayed. The ProPresenter computer sends signal through SDI to the displays, to Bethel TV so everyone can have a countdown clock, an HDMI for the ATEM switch, a Cat5 cable for internet connection, and then stereo XLR outputs for the pre- and post-service music coming out of ProPresenter, and then 2 USB ins that can be used if necessary. The best part is, this rig only takes up 2 ports on the Mac, one for charging, and the headphone jack. Now, the ProPresenter tech has 2 main jobs. That being manually running slides during worship and using the video switcher to switch between camera 3, their safe wide camera and speaker camera, the program feed, which comes from Video Village, and the ProPresenter feed, which includes content that can be displayed during breaks and intervals. During worship, lyrics are overlaid over the main video feed. While slightly technical, the way this works at the conference is done through keying, a simple process where a color, normally green, blue, or black, is removed and the other colors are left untouched. The lyrics in ProPresenter have a black background, so the black background is keyed out with a Luma key, and the leftover text gets married to the video in broadcast, which is then displayed to the projector's screens. The display and camera team are working very close together, and this part of the setup is my favorite part. But before we can get into Video Village, I think it may be time for a quick technical break to learn a little bit more about the history of Bethel and why they value leveraging these tools in worship.
So, Redding, California, we're about 2 hours from Sacramento, 2.5 hours from Sacramento, 3.5 from San Francisco. We only have one tiny little airport that has one gate, and right now the only flights that come in there are from United Airlines. And so there's only one way to get here if you want to fly in. It's definitely not an easy city to get to. We're a small city, 100,000 people. It's more, I would explain it to people as more of a country feel. Still a lot of open land here, big land. And the church has been here for over 20 years. And Bill Johnson's been the senior pastor for about 20 of those years. I like to say that I am actually living my dreams on their sacrifices. Because of their sacrifices, I'm allowed to do what I love to do, which is video production, and do it on such a scale that not a lot of other churches are doing.
That's kind of an interesting thing for folks to learn about, like I don't know, maybe a little bit more of the story of why here.
Yeah, honestly, I think we're still trying to unpack that ourselves as a staff, our leadership as well. Obviously, we know it's God, just because of the fruits of what's been happening here in town and around the world. Bethel started out over 20 years ago, and Bill was actually pastoring another church in Weaverville about 2 hours from here. And Bill got touched with the Toronto outpouring up in Toronto and came back to Weaverville and was very adamant about just allowing God to do what God wants to do in services. Later on, a couple years later, Emerald Johnson called him up and said, hey, do you want to come down and take over the church? So Bill likes to say that his goal was not to build a big church, but to build big people. And his outlook was also on excellence and honor. Because of that, he knows that one of his main things that he likes to joke around, but it's actually true, is, you get what you pay for. You can buy cheap stuff and it'll last for a little bit, but if you buy good stuff, it'll last a long time, So going into when we actually started Bethel TV over 10 years ago, the discussions were, well, how are we going to do this? And do we want to either jump into it a little bit and just build piece by piece, or do you want to actually go in hard and spend money and do things right, get the right equipment, especially for how they wanted it to look and feel at the time. And Bill signed off on it. He's like, yeah, this is great. I would love to just get excellence out the door, basically.
Bethel's leadership is focused on building big people, letting God do what he will, and going for a spirit of excellence in all things that they do. I find it interesting that Bethel picked Redding, California, a place that is so hard to get to, a city with double the crime rate in most sectors than the rest of California, a city where you have a 1 in 20 chance to be a victim of a crime, or a city that has a 78% higher crime rate than the national average. Were they planted right in the heart of where Jesus was needed most? So far in this tech tour, we've covered how the Bethel production team creates an engaging worship environment for people attending their church or other live venue. But Bethel's reach expands far beyond the walls of this civic center or their local church campus. The secret behind this is the robust systems they've created to capture and broadcast their worship gatherings to the world.
Our philosophy of capturing worship is a little bit different. We want to make sure we're high energy, fast paced. We really want to make the user at home experience what we experience in the room. And that's our main end goal, is for them to feel like they're actually here with us. We also run, our iMag is not separate from our actual program feed that goes out to the streaming audience. Our iMag in-house is the exact same feed. So what we do is, it's basically so that my philosophy for that is for the users in the building to actually feel like they're on stage and a part of the worship experience, instead of separated from the stage. So it helps them engage more in the worship while they're here.
So Chad uses his video booth setup to send a program feed of the cameras to broadcast and to the house displays. We'll get into a detailed demonstration of how that all works, but for now, let's take a peek at how broadcast utilizes the program feed. It starts here in Video Village, both at conference and at home, with a Mac in charge of monitoring the video feed and doing the streaming to Bethel TV. In their conference setup, if you head upstairs, you'll find Johnny Duran in charge of the broadcast mix. The key for any good broadcast is capturing and mixing excellent audio. Let's learn how they do it.
My name is Johnny Duran, and I'm an audio engineer for Bethel TV. We mix for broadcast for Bethel TV and for YouTube stuff. For this conference, we're getting audio from Monitor World, and they're sending us the feed. So we're kind of gain sharing with them, and it goes through our Orion interface, and then it goes back out to video guys, and they kind of, put it together with the video. I'm running Pro Tools right now. My boss, Luke Hendrickson, he created this template fine-tuned it over the course of, I don't know, 7 years, 8 years, and this is what we use for everything pretty much, even our regular Sunday services. Video guys take care of the rest, you know, once I mix it, send it to them and they broadcast it. Yeah, just like the front of house guys are mixing live, I'm mixing live too, so there's no post-production stuff. Only for like official Bethel Music like releases, then they go back and do like post stuff, but everything else is live.
So Johnny mixes audio live and then sends that to the video village where the audio gets married to the video, which is then sent to that previous mentioned MacBook running the stream for Bethel TV, which is operated through Vimeo's live streaming features. The biggest difference between this and their home setup is that Johnny is mixing on the Korg Nano Control 2 with buttons and faders mapped to Pro Tools, while at home they utilize a gigantic analog mixer with Pro Tools to do their mixing. What's so fascinating about their broadcast setup is the sheer amount of people that it reaches. I'm interested in learning a little bit more about how many people Bethel is truly reaching.
Yeah, right now, our current numbers, our reach has been not just locally but globally. I'll start off with locally. We have about 11,000 members that call Bethel their home. So every weekend, they're just 11,000 people are flowing through our little 1,200 seat. It's 1,000 seat auditorium. So we do 4 services here at this campus. There are 2 on a separate campus, our Twin View campus, and then there's another service downtown in a theater. Apart from that, we average, I believe, another 5,000 visitors a week. The reach globally right now, our music, most of the people know our music. Most of our YouTube videos will, right now, there's a few of the YouTube videos that are actually in the 10 million view category. We have a podcast. Our podcast sees up to 1.5 million downloads a year. One of the things that's unusual is that our church has actual membership for watching services. We have a free membership which allows you to watch our Sundays for free, and allows you to replay the Sundays for a week. And then you have another 2 tiers of paid memberships that allows them to watch all of the previous Sundays, previous years. You can go all the way back up until 1998, I believe. And the other tier, you get access to all of the conferences for free. From what I've seen, within the past 2 months, we have about 20,000 members that are actual paid subscribers, and 400,000 that are free subscribers. On any given Sunday, about 75% of them will actually be tuning in and watching. We typically broadcast to our Bethel TV platform, YouTube, and once in a while we'll broadcast to Facebook. And our main views on YouTube average about 2,000 to 3,000 per service that we broadcast on there.
Reach and success of Bethel's online ministry and their worship ministry presents unique challenges to Bethel's production team. Bethel's music is everywhere in contemporary churches, and because of their large online following, they often have to deal with copyright issues and people using their content.
Literally, there's YouTube channels where like they have hundreds of thousands of subscribers, and all they've done is like literally ripped your streams or something from somewhere.
Oh, that, yes.
And just repost
those reposts, yes. So Bethel Music basically created a department for copyright infringement. And we got to a point where we have enough clout, so to say, with YouTube to actually have a person to talk to and to have some like, hey, this is, this people, this is not us. And they'll send cease and desist letters to some of the people that still do it till today, because there's still some people that actually still do it. Just because you put no copyright infringement intended doesn't mean that it's legal. To be honest, I get it to some point where a lot of our stuff you have to pay for it. Yeah. But on the other side of that is the reason why you have to pay for it is because we have a whole team that's actually busting their butts to do it. You know, you guys saw it yesterday. You know, we do 14-hour days for the conference, and then loadouts are usually 20 hours. Wow. You know, and not a lot of people take that into account, and they're like, why don't you give it away for free or do this? But, well, you know, this is how I feed my family. You know,
and really, it's no wonder that Bethel's online streaming service has a paid feature. Their production team is quite large and puts in insane amount of hours to make things like Open Heavens conference work. A significant portion of this production team, some volunteers, some paid, is their camera ops team. Everything being broadcast to Bethel TV and to the live displays relies pretty much entirely on what the camera team is doing. Let's break down the gear that they use to make video production happen. Bethel rocks Blackmagic Ursa 4K cameras for the majority of their setup. They have a 6K pocket cinema camera, also by Blackmagic, that they use mainly for crowd shots, and then they have 2 broadcast Ursas for their pedestal cameras in the tech booth. Not that they really need the pedestals, because they tend to do everything handheld. They have one pedestal camera that does do a consistent safe shot, which is wise. As far as lenses go, they normally use a 70 to 200 millimeter zoom, but for drums they do go a bit wider. Every camera is equipped with some sort of zoom lens, and this gives each of the ops a lot more versatility as they are doing all of their adjustments on the fly and can adapt much more efficiently. The cameras are then routed to the video booth using a combination of wireless packs and hardwire SDI connections, which goes into a fiber converter and then into the board. Because they use Blackmagic cameras, which have powerful sensors, they don't have to do any color correction or use any LUTs. They just send all the camera feeds directly to the video booth. The style of Bethel's camera operators is unlike anything I've ever seen in live church production. Instead of slow pans and wide angles, the operators really get in on the action and create an incredible amount of movement that dynamically gives the video a lot of life. Let's talk to Nathan, a man of many roles at Bethel.
I am Nathan. I am scheduler, in charge of load out and load in, cam op. I also direct. So our cam opping style, we try to include as much movement and energy as we can in our shots. The reason we do that, we try to match the music as much as we can, so having aggressive movements during, not necessarily aggressive music, but more energetic music kind of partners along with the music itself. Kind of what that looks like, I guess. I mean, it's just doing a pretty little dance, honestly. So something I do, it's not all just in my hands. I kind of sway back and forth with my feet too. And a way that we usually get started, I mean, it's not something that we do during a stream, but kind of like a starting point would be to draw figure eights. Like if you had a bullseye on the front of your lens, drawing a figure eight with it is kind of where we start. But at that point, we kind of take it to more of a less predictive movement, but that's kind of where we all start, is drawing figure eights. Stage cams, we do a lot of whips. Crowd stuff, we do a lot of whips, so finding a target and whipping to it, making sure that you're going to be able to get your focus. Sometimes we don't always, but we try our best. That's another way to increase energy on your shots. Like when we start a whip, I would say in my situation, it's more up to me. Chad, our main director, kind of trusts us in that kind of decision. So he'll call us, he'll come to us, and I'll kind of line up my shot, making sure that the audience knows what I'm shooting first. Say it's the keys, and letting them establish that they're looking at the keys, and like maybe I'll do like 1 second or so, then I'll whip to a vocalist or something like that. So it kind of establishes it, but again, Chad trusts us on getting our shots really well. And even like we're still working on it, but like you watch streams and in the room, you're feeling that energy. It's like, this is amazing. Then you watch it back, but it's like more of the, I guess, broadcast style. And it's like, I'm not feeling that same energy that I felt in the room. Yeah. But that's kind of like our main goal, is like those people watching can experience that same energy that was in the room. Another one of our goals is like letting audience online and in the room actually see different parts of the room that they're not able to from their position. So like getting crowd reactions from songs, people encountering the Lord can actually lead that person into an encounter themselves. So like us being able to get those really helps too. and then like obviously getting close up of instruments that might be taking over. In the audience, you might not be able to see that from the back, but having a camera up close and personal kind of lets you see what kind of instruments taking over and leading the group.
Chad runs this whole system from his video booth setup, both here and at home. And the way it happens is relatively simple. All of the video feeds from the cameras get routed through Blackmagic fiber converters into the Blackmagic Smart Hub 40x40, which is a 40 in, 40 out interface that sends the feed to a production ATEM 4K switcher that allows Chad to switch the feeds live. With the ATEM comes the ability to change routing through the software or simply through the panel on the switcher. Then, as backup, the Hyperdecks record the live feed, and the Hyperdeck Mini records an H.264 version for social media, which just means it's more compressed than the raw feed. There is one more piece to the Video Village, and it is the coolest part, I would argue, of their entire tech setup. A custom-built live 60 frame per second slow motion machine. This thing can take a feed from any one of the cameras, slow it down live, and then automatically speed ramp back up to normal speed. It looks like this. The biggest question that I have at this point about Bethel's camera setup is how they pull it off. I mean, with 8 camera feeds, Chad has a lot on his plate as he switches the program feed. So how do they communicate to each other? Here is a live example of the program feed, of Chad switching, and their comms communication, so you can really get a feel of how all this comes together.
8. Yeah, give me Josh right there. Just stand Josh. Yeah. 2, 2, 5, 5. 1, 1, 3, 3. 8, 8. Thank you, 8. 4, 3, 3, 6, 6. 5, 5, 1, 1. Ah, dang it, 5. I missed that. 2, 2. Repo. 7, 7, 7, 2, 2, 5, 5, 5. Nice. 3, 3. 4, 4. 8. I'm gonna land on 7, 8. 5, 5.
There you have it. Now you know the exact tech setup used at Bethel Church, but tech is only one piece of the puzzle.
It's just so hard to wrap our minds around like everything going on here.
It's a lot.
It's so much.
It's a lot.
What's like the heart behind like what Bethel's vision and mission is, and like what you guys are trying to accomplish?
Really, our heart is to bring heaven down to earth. Bill's favorite scripture, his quote is, "On earth as it is in heaven," and to show people that things are still possible today. You know, miracles can still happen, that blessings can still come. He's very much a father to not just his family, but it trickles down all the way down to the staff, where he's very father-like in how he runs the church. If we want to do something new, it's just like a dad. I'm a father myself, so it's like if my son wants to, hey, can I try this? I'm gonna go, yeah, even though I might not think it's gonna work and I think it might fail. He still allows us to, let's try it, let's see what happens. Just to have that kind of a freedom, as far as even from a tech point of view, is something that's foreign. It doesn't happen a lot. And so for us to be coming with ideas and, hey, what if we tried this? What if we tried live slow motion? You know, what does that look like? And to be able to have leadership that all have that same father's heart to actually say, yeah, let's do it. Why not? Let's try it out. You know, if it doesn't work, it doesn't work. We try something else. It trickles down to even my team. So for the way that I run my video team, my whole heart is that they would worship first and capture second. I never want them to feel like they need to impress me, because there's nobody to impress. The Father's already impressed with them. God is already impressed with them. So there's no reason why they need to impress me at all. And you can see it across in their work. The way we capture, for me, is something that right now not a lot of people are doing. Our style is definitely something that not a lot of people are doing. They can replicate it, but the heart behind it for us is worship first, capture second. And all of my cam ops are up there. They're worshiping through their craft and worshiping as they're like, even if they're making adjustments or walking to get another shot. I have countless people come up and tell me like, hey, that camera operator there, it was amazing to watch them actually stop, lift their hands up and worship for a couple of seconds and then go back to work. So that's been my heart coming into it. It's also the same heart as the house, where worship would come first.
It's really easy to look at a big name like Bethel and separate the brand from the people behind it. Mega church sounds too big, too scary, too much negative connotation to be authentic. There's seemingly unlimited resources, their huge public image, it's all in the limelight, and any false move is jumped upon and ridiculed.
Guys are worship superstars.
Oh, brother.
Reckless Love out, and what church in America is not singing that
I think a lot of the time it's easier to see Jesus in the little things. Being set apart means to look different, right? The sheer multitude, the millions of tiny decisions that we make every day, those actions or inactions are what make up our hearts and determine, away from public image and fame, our nearness to the heart of Jesus. In every tiny system at Bethel, in every aspect of tech, I saw something that was different than the normal production world, than secularism. Every heart was postured for worship. At one point during worship, one of the camera ops put down his camera while I happened to be filming and started praying for a guy in front of me. I've never thought like that, worship first, work second. So what is the heart behind the Bethel tech team? What I think makes the tech setup function so well for Bethel is in the willingness of the whole team to be a part of a team, using each of their unique talents to better fit a greater role.
And I've been thinking a lot about it as you guys have been running around and doing stuff, how easy it is to lose focus of why we do this. Just watching everybody run around, and it's like, it's really easy to retreat to our equipment. It's really easy to get all caught up in just work and just feel the pull of I have to do this, or how I get is like, I love it. I'm like, oh my gosh, I freaking love this. This is so fun. I love mixing. I love being on the console. I love doing my job. To the point of like, at times I'll find myself completely losing focus of why I started doing it in the first place. I've never had a desire to do this outside of the church or outside of worship. Like, I want to do it for the Lord. Like, we were drawn to this because of that reason. In 2 Timothy 1:9, it says, "Who saved us and called us to a holy calling, not because of our works, but because of his own purpose and grace, which he gave us in Christ Jesus, before the ages began." He called us to a holy calling. We're all techs, but we're totally called to live holy. We're totally called to answer his call. And it's not because of the things that we're doing. This is like a lifestyle that we're all living in, and we do this for him, and we will do it the very best we can, but we don't do it because that's all we do. Our calling is unique. I've been in a position where I was asked to be the leader at a church for a little bit, so I was a pastor this last year, and it didn't work out because I'm built to be a support to pastors. I'm built to support that guy. I'm not the guy. I thought his teaching was super profound because all he talked about was Jesus. It's like, what's the secret? It's Jesus. Jesus is the secret. And I was just like, man, there's no one in this entire room that can't take that away from here and have a better life.
Jesus is the secret. Isn't that beautiful? Bethel's tech team is an exemplar of the heart we should all have for ministry. I think the reason why Bethel Church is so attractive to people in the Christian community and those outside of it is that they have a spirit about them that is different. In the way that they do put worship before work, in the way their church grew and expanded, it was never about the tech. It was and is about Jesus, and tech just expands their reach and Jesus' word exponentially. It's interesting to me how a team with all these different roles is a microcosm of the church body that Paul talks about. Each church with a different role, different people to reach. Thousands of people heard the word of Jesus at Open Heavens, and tens of thousands of people hear about Jesus every Sunday in Reading, at home, and through the worship of thousands of other churches playing Bethel music. Hundreds to thousands of people in your ministry are being healed by the redemption and grace that lives through Jesus Christ. Whether you have the resources to invest in your production like Bethel does, or you have a congregation of 5 people, God is using that. Jesus is using you in your ministry, tech teams, worship leaders, people here just interested in Bethel. God wants to use you in your unique gifts. So press on to the best of your ability. For all of us, the capital C Church, share one goal: that the good news of Jesus will be known by all, in order that heaven will become more crowded, that God's kingdom will reign on earth as it is in heaven.